Welcome back to the lecture series on Introduction to Indian Philosophy. In the previous lecture, I discussed how the evolution begins through the juxtaposition of Prakriti and Purusha. In this lecture, we will try to understand the different stages of evolution and the evolutes. Let us see the table again. Now, again you can see at the top is Prakriti, then comes Mahat, then Ahamkara, then Manasa, then the 5 Jnanendriyas, the 5 Karmendriyas, the 5 Tanmatras, and now at last you can see the 5 Mahabhutas. Now, Prakriti produces Mahat or Buddhi. Mahat produces Ahankara. Ahankar produces 16 categories which include the manas, the 5 sense organs, the 5 organs of action, the 5 subtle elements of the tanmatras. Now the 5 tanmatras produce the 5 grosser elements or the mahabhutas. Before I go on to explain each of these categories separately, I wish to discuss verse 3 of the Sankhya Karika, which is Moolah prakritihi avikritihi mahadayaha prakriti vikritiyaha sapta shodashakaha tu vikaraha na prakritihi na vikritihi purushaha, which may be translated as the primal nature is non-evolute. The group of 7 beginning with the great principle Buddhi and the rest are both evolvents and evolutes. But the 16, that is the 5 organs of sense, 5 of action, the mind and the 5 gross elements are only evolutes. The spirit is neither the evolvent nor the evolute. So, here we see 4 kinds of categories. Some are merely evolvents, that is producing. Some are merely products or evolutes. Some are both producing and produced, and some are neither producing nor produced. Keeping this in mind, we can very well say that Prakriti is the primary evolvent. It is eternal and self-existing primal matter. It is not an evolute, and which is why the term Moola is used with Prakriti. It is the basis of all evolutes. Now let us come to those which are both producing and produced. They are 7 in number, beginning with Mahat or Buddhi, which produces Ahamkara. But it is itself produced by Prakriti. Now Ahankara produces Manas, the 5 sense organs, the 5 organs of action, and the 5 subtle elements, while itself being produced by Buddhi. Likewise, the 5 subtle elements or tanmatras produce the 5 gross elements or mahabhutas, but themselves they are the products of Ahamkara. Now moving on to those categories which are only evolutes or products, they are 16 in number, and they include the mind, the 5 sense organs, the 5 organs of action, and the 5 gross elements or mahabhutas. When I say gross, that means they are perceptible by the senses, like tree, cow, mountain, etc. The last is the category of Purusha, which is neither producing nor produced. Now it is time to go into the details of the products or the evolutes. And the first evolute of Prakriti is Mahat, which literally means the great one. It is the seed of the boundless universe, also called Buddhi, and is translated in English as intellect. Now with regard to Mahat or Buddhi, the Sankhya Karika says, Adhyavasayah buddhihi dharmah gnanam viraga aishwaryam satvikam etad rupam tamasam asmat viparyastam, which means buddhi is ascertainment or will. Virtue, knowledge, dispassion and power are its manifestations when sattva attribute abounds, and the reverse of these when tamas attribute abounds. Mahat is the state where Prakriti receives light from Purusha, and this whole process of manifestation of the universe begins. This cosmic state has its individual counterpart in Buddhi or intellect, which is the organ by which external objects are presented to the sight of Purusha in their actual form. So, Buddhi, being the first evolute, is closest to Purusha. It is the subtlest faculty of a human being and is produced from the sattvic aspect of Prakriti. Why we say that it comes from the sattvic aspect of Prakriti is because, sattva characterizes weightlessness, clarity and light, whereas tamas characterizes heaviness, unclarity and darkness. So, rajas, the active force, has its influence on sattva earlier than it has its influence on tamas. Now, because buddhi is sattvic, the light of the Purusha reflects on it in a manner in which an object in a clear sparkling mirror is reflected. So what happens? The Purusha, seeing his reflection in the buddhi, identifies himself with the image reflected on the buddhi and forgets his true nature. This in fact channels the feeling of I-ness in buddhi. And so the unconscious buddhi begins to function as a conscious principle. Now, as mentioned in the Karika, when buddhi is under the influence of sattva or goodness, it possesses the qualities of virtue, that is dharma, knowledge, that is jnana, dispassion, that is vairagya, and power, that is aishwarya. But when buddhi is affected by tamas or darkness, then it possesses the opposites of these four qualities, namely non-virtue, which is adharma, ignorance or ajnana, attachment or avairagya, and weakness, which is incompetency or aneshwarya. Now, commentators on Sankhya Karika who are Vedantins have explained these Karikas according to their understanding of the school. So, I am not absolutely sure what exactly Kapila meant by virtue, knowledge, dispassion and power. Yet we can try to understand and evaluate if the commentators have done justice to Kapila's system. Vachaspati Mishra, for example, explains virtue as the cause of abhyudaya and nishrayasa, that is, worldly prosperity and spiritual well-being. If, for example, one performs sacrifices and does charity, then that will bring worldly prosperity for him. And if a person performs Ashtanga Yoga, that will bring him spiritual well-being. Let me now refer to Gaudapada's commentary on Sankhya Karika. You know, he too is or was a Vedantin. In his commentary, he says that knowledge or jnana is of two kinds, external and internal. External knowledge consists of the knowledge of the Vedas, Vedangas, Puranas, theology, logic and law. Whereas internal knowledge is the knowledge of the distinction of Prakriti and Purusha. And this knowledge leads to liberation. Now, how far we can relate this to the Sankhya school is a matter of research. Anyway, moving on to the third quality, which is dispassion. Gaudapada says it is also of two kinds, one which is towards all external objects. The reason for this dispassion could either be some defect in them, or they are injurious, or their acquisition is difficult. The second kind of dispassion is with regard to one's detachment from matter. Now, power, which is the fourth quality of buddhi, could either be understood as some supernatural power or excellence. The one who has gained the power to transcend himself from this material world can achieve what he pleases. Even the elements comply with his plans. Here, in their commentaries, both Vachaspati Mishra and Gaudapada refer to the yoga school of Patanjali, which of course is allied to Sankhya. So, these were the qualities of buddhi when it is abounded in sattva. The qualities of buddhi abounded in tamas will be the opposites of the ones I just explained. Now, all these qualities of buddhi except knowledge entangle Purusha in worldly matters and suffering. As I discussed earlier, he mistakenly identifies himself with buddhi and therefore thinks that it is he who is experiencing what buddhi is experiencing. But due to its quality of knowledge, which is the discriminating and decision-making function of buddhi, Purusha realizes the falsity of his mistaken identity with buddhi. He recognizes that he is different from Prakriti, which actually is his realization of his true liberated nature. Let us now discuss Ahamkara, which is the derivative of Mahat or Buddhi, and Ishwar Krishna defines it in the Karika 24 as Abhimanaha Ahamkaraha Tasmat Dvidaha Pravartate Sargaha Ekadashakaha Cha Ganaha Tanmatraha Panchakaha Cha Eva. Now, this may be translated as Ahamkara is self-assertion. From that proceeds a twofold evolution only, with the set of 11 and the fivefold primary or rudimentary elements. As the translation suggests, Ahamkar is defined as self-assertion, which suggests a state of being individuated. In the ordinary usage, it means ego. But one must not get swayed by this ordinary usage, which refers to a person's exaggerated sense of self-esteem or self-importance. But Ahankara stands for a much wider concept. It is the sense of I that separates one's own self from everyone else. As Vachaspati Mishra interprets it, the egocentricity involved in self-assertions as observed in ideas which are well thought of and reasoned and take such forms as I am entitled to this, verily I am competent to do this. All these objects of sense are for my sake only. There is none else other than me who is entitled for this. Hence, I am, etc. are the unique operations of this Ahamkara, depending upon which the Buddhi determines, like this should be done by me. I just want to say here that Kapila, the founder of the Sankhya system, probably by Abhimanaha meant not merely that self-assertion or ego or I-ness is consciousness of our individual life, but also that which brings together our relationship with the external world. Now, the different products that emanate from Ahamkara are twofold. The first is the set of 11, which includes the 5 sense organs, the 5 organs of action, along with manas or mind. And the second includes the 5 primary or subtle elements. Now, these subtle elements are the essences of the gross material objects. The 25th Karika is also important as it mentions the 3 categories of ahamkara, which are sattvika, rajasa and tamasa, depending on which of the 3 gunas is predominant in the ahamkara. And the Karika is sattvikaha ekadashakaha pravartate vaikritad ahamkarat bhutadeha tanmatraha sa tamasah tejasad ubhayam, which means the set of 11 abounding in sattva proceeds from the Vaikrita form of I principle. The set of 5 primary elements proceed from the Bhutadi form of I principle. They are Tamasa. From the Tejasa form of I principle proceed both of them. So, when the Sattva gun, which characterizes goodness, affects ahamkara, it produces the 11 good principles, which include the 5 senses of perception, that is the sense of hearing, the sense of touching, the sense of seeing, tasting and smelling, and it includes the 5 senses of action, namely the sense of verbalization, the sense of apprehension, locomotion, excretion and procreation. Along with these, the Sattvic Ahankar also includes Manas, which is the mind. And when the Ahamkara is under the influence of Tamas, which characterizes darkness, it produces the 5 Tanmatras or subtle elements of sound, touch, color, taste and smell. Now, the influence of Rajas motivates the other 2 gunas and brings them to action. So, Rajas, which characterizes passion, gives impetus to this whole process, and the 3 gunas act upon or rather within Ahamkar and produce different principles. Hence, the Rajasa Ahamkar is the producer of both the 11 senses as well as the 5 Tanmatras. However, according to some commentators of Sankhya Karika, mind or manas alone is the product of Sattvic Ahamkar, while the other 10 are the products of Rajasa Ahamkar, and the 5 Tanmatras are the products of Tamasa Ahamkar. Anyway, what I explained to you before is from the Sankhya Karika itself, not from any commentary. So, coming back to our discussion of the products of Ahamkar, the eye, the ear, the tongue, the nose and the skin. These are the physical organs of perception as they receive sensations from the outside world, transmit them through the mind to the intellect. So, they correspond to the 5 cognitive senses. There are also 5 organs of action, namely the mouth, the hands, the feet, the organs of excretion and generation, which correspond to the 5 senses of action, namely verbalization, apprehension, locomotion, excretion and procreation. We must keep in mind that the physical organs are not to be confused with the senses. In fact, the senses empower them to perform their actions. We cannot perceive the senses, we can only infer them from the actions that these physical organs perform. The mind, which is the 11th sense, has the nature of both the cognitive as well as active. It is cognitive because it is a deliberating principle. Along with the Ahamkar and Buddhi, it performs the cognate functions, and therefore the 3 together are called Antahkarana, internal senses, as opposed to the 5 sense organs and the 5 organs of action, which are called the external senses. Now, because mind is multifarious and subtle, it comes in contact with many senses at the same time. It is an instrument of action also. So, as I just explained a little while ago, when the cognitive senses come in contact with their respective objects, they transmit their experience to the mind, which on its part interprets the data. It gives the data a comprehensive form, as in, this is a thing. Ahamkar then claims that thing. It identifies itself with the ones that it finds desirable and disidentifies itself with those that are undesirable. And in the end, the intellect or buddhi decides whether that thing is to be pursued or avoided. Gaudapada in his commentary explains that this transmission of message from the senses through the mind and ahamkara to the buddhi may be either instantaneous or gradual. And he gives an analogy. A person walking along the road on seeing an object at a distance is in doubt whether that object is a pole or a man. To ascertain what it is, he observes its characteristic features and finds a small bird sitting there. His doubt is thus removed by the reflection of the mind. And his intellect or buddhi discriminates that it is not a man but a pole. The ahankar or the I principle quickly interposes or jumps in to certify, indeed I am certain it is a pole. Now let us discuss the 5 tanmatras or the subtle elements, namely sound, touch, color, taste and smell. Being subtle, they cannot be perceived but only inferred. As you know, they are both products as well as producing. They are produced with the 10 senses and the mind from the ahamkara. And they produce the 5 mahabhutas or the 5 gross elements. Now, the first tanmatra that is produced is the sound, which in turn produces ether or akash, which is the space element. So, the mahabhuta space has the quality of sound and it is perceived by the ear. The second tanmatra is touch and it produces the air element. And because touch combines with sound, the mahabhuta air has the qualities of both sound and touch. However, its special attribute touch is sensed by the skin. The third tanmatra, color, produces the fire element. And because color combines with sound and touch, the mahabhuta fire has the qualities of sound, touch and color. But its special quality is color, which is perceived by the eyes. The fourth tanmatra, taste, produces the water element. It has the qualities of sound, touch and color. However, its special quality is taste, which is perceived by the tongue. The last tanmatra is smell, which produces the earth element. Apart from the qualities of sound, touch, color and taste, it has the quality of smell, which is its special quality and which is perceived by the nose. So, this is the whole process of evolution which takes place in 24 stages. If you remember, at the root is Prakriti and its last offshoot is the earth element. Of the different evolutes of Prakriti, only the Mahabhutas possess the characteristics of being pleasurable, painful or befuddling. So, this much about the Sankhya theory of evolution. Hope you enjoyed learning about it. Thank you.